Welcome back to the channel. All right, sorry for the monthly Battlegrounds tier list update. This one's going to be kind of going out in August. It's just when the Battleground seasons are lapping over with months. Cover a lot of September, and then we'll do probably September, October, when we'll see how it all matches up. But this is the update for heading into September. Remember, this is a general tier list, right? Like each meta is different. All the nodes are different. Victory track, Gladiator Circuit. I use this, Illuminati, we all pitch in, and like if you just keep ranking up these champions when the meta comes out and when you're there and you're ready and you're facing it, in all likelihood, you've got the best champions ranked up. You just got one or two that are very specific to the meta to take to the top and have a good time. We're going to go over the brand new champions, of course, and then all the meta shifts, things that we see coming, talk about it. You can see like the microphone right there next to Red Skull and Mole Man are perfect examples of what I'm talking about. As usual, huge thank you to the MCoC Illuminati spreadsheet wizards and Misty K. Misty will be creating the screenshot size tier list for me, which I'll definitely be putting out on my Twitter feed as I do every month with this and the general tier list as well. And then of course the spreadsheet is linked in the description. And last but not least, but I think you all have gotten used to this by now, dual threats, attackers, defenders. It's a very good way for us to break this down for a presentation. All champions are ranked or put into the category where they would be ranked the highest. All three categories are incredibly important. You need to make sure you construct your deck, have a great time with that, and then go and do your bans and then actually do the matches. All of these things are incredibly important to being successful and having fun in Battlegrounds. We'll start with the tier above all dual threats. While all the categories are important, dual threats are still the baseline, the building block of my deck in each and every single draft. So the first champion we will talk about here is Mole Man. This is a promotion for Mole Man. We definitely have him as a dual threat. There was thought about putting him as like a 9 attacker, but we talked to Jaeger. Jaeger does have a rank 3 Mole Man, has shown us a tremendous amount of videos. Unfortunately, some of them are taking out Red Skull, which we'll get to when we get to tech. But the damage, we theorized this, we talked about this, coming out as a 7-star in a competitive mode shows how powerful he can be, what his actual ceiling is as a rank 3, definitely has tremendous value there. And then there is enough defensive value where if you take him thinking you're going to use him offensively, it is not crazy, it's not wild. In fact, it could happen. It's reasonable to think you could use him as a defender if the draft goes that way. That's one of the big ways you can become a dual threat. The health pool is large enough, and you know, hitting into his block is usually a very, very bad idea. Moving on to the tech class, we have Red Skull. Now, Red Skull sitting there with the 10 has been there at 10 for quite a while. I've done a Red Skull video, one of my favorite dual threat champions in the game. Recent metas have not been kind to him. They've just been particularly harsh for his use either defensively or offensively. And so we don't want to overreact, but we are considering moving him down to a 9. There was lengthy conversation about this. Was it just purely the recent metas? And actually Trappy, just literally today, the day I'm filming this, put out a video on it. So make sure you check that out. But for us, what we thought was there's also, and Trappy did mention this too, there are a lot of cosmic champions coming to the game that are at least good for him, right? We talked about that even in the interview I just did with Kabam Crash. One of the things Crash mentioned was the enjoyment of having buffs influence the game and then having a champion like Gladiator come in, excellent for Red Skull. So we need to keep an eye on that. And a lot of that's going to come down to like deck construction. How well do you protect Red Skull? Like if you have Red Skull and you really want to rank him up high, you probably should be banning Cosmic Ghost Rider, who's just dominating literally everything lately. So that is a really smart idea. We have our eye on it. I'm not ready to move him down because I think a lot of this has just been the recent metas. But I cannot argue with the fact that more Cosmics who seem to be good for him are coming into the game and making their way into competitors' decks. All right, let's move to the top shelf of dual threat. The only update for the top shelf of dual threat categories is Punisher. Punisher 2099. Now, you know I've been a massive fan of Punisher 29 for quite a while now. I've been reluctant on using my rank up resources outside of like a 4 or 5 saga gem, something like that, on a 6-star champion just because of where I've been in the game. It's benefited me a lot. In certain metas like this last one, you know, I didn't have a Ronin or something like that, so that hurt me quite a bit, but I'm okay with that. I'm playing the long game. I'm having a lot of fun. Punisher 2099 is a champion that if I had been putting my catalysts and things like that into 6 stars, he definitely would have gone up. I very much recognize the power control, and it all lives in his kit. He's not as good as America Chavez. I'm not going to say he is, and think it's very important that people remember his power control is different than hers. Hers is ability power rate. His is combat power rate. It's important that people understand that difference. I think most of you do if you're watching this video, but just in case you don't, Punisher 299 with the ability to now be out as a 7-star, meaning we will see awakened rank 3s. I badly want that. It doesn't look like it's going to happen, but if I did, if I was to pull him, I would definitely want to awaken him, and if I did, I would definitely, he'd be on my short list of rank 3 champions with a crit stat focus and then a crit a block pen defensive stat focus. I think you're seeing a decent defender, someone that's going to chip health down, and then if the meta goes a certain way, could actually become a very problematic defender, right? I think it's like kinetic transfers, and his specials could be shooting way up to special 3s. We've seen this in Alliance War, right? He's only been as a 6-star, so we haven't seen him that much lately. But if you go back far enough, not that long ago, but before 7-stars really took off the 7-star rank 3s, there would be metas where Punisher 29 was actually a problematic defender, and even if it wasn't for the meta, sometimes just certain nodes and things like that, he would be there. So I feel really good about him as an 8. It's a bit of a prediction. That's why we've got the dice emoji there. If you believe in him, you've got him. I think rank him up. And if you're like, well, let's give us a couple months, couple metas, and check it out, I don't think there's any harm in that. Potentially he moves back down to 7, but I feel really good with him at 8. I'd love to get my own Awakened Pun 99 7-star. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the tier above all for attackers. There were no updates to the tier above all attackers. You can see them right there. Go ahead and take a look at them, especially as we're talking. Feel free to pause the video or anything like that. And then we'll move on to the top shelf. Now, a lot of these top shelf champions, I know a lot of you, because every month it sounds, you're like, no, I use them to do all the time, all these great things. And that's definitely how you end up here. That's very much it, right? We just have them ranked as if you had all of the options, okay? There's going to be certain metas or just even or certain deck constructions that can definitely like emphasize or really set up some of these champions. You can do phenomenal things with them. I think you could do great with a whole deck made of these champions and the dual threats and the defenders. So make sure you keep that in mind. These are great champions. The Hood is the first new champion as a 7-star. I can't wait to start seeing 7-star rank 3s. I fully believe that one of the reasons Hood is not being used as frequently in the highest tiers of Battlegrounds is because he was only as a 6-star. Eventually, at some point, that big burst he was doing off of his heavy just was not doing enough damage. Now, we might not see this right away because I think people are going to want him awakened, and the SIG does start to help as far as pushing the boundaries of Battlegrounds attack. But I think unless you're playing at like these super high tier levels like Celestial, and maybe some of Mysterium, things like that, I think a 7-star rank 2, rank 3 Hood is going to see you a very, very, very long way. I will be very happy to pull him out of the Titan Crystal should that happen. I will want to awaken, and Mystic is such a deep class these days, particularly for Battleground. Might have a little trouble getting into a deck, but that's due to the strength of the class, not due to his lack of strength. Moving through there, just again, shouting out to Luke Cage, Jaeger. I've got my own rank 3 now. Showcases will be coming out. And then we get to, I know there was a couple more. There they are. They're the 2 new champions, or the buff champion and the new champion for this last month. Superior Iron Man. Now, this is where things are really going to be interesting. We definitely have the dice emoji there for like our own. We could argue, and many of us did, that they could even be higher on this. In particular, I feel the way about Super Iron Man or Superior Iron Man. He does not have any of those true strike abilities that we often see right on the Cosmic Champions, doing a lot of damage. He's not handing evade or auto block or miss or anything like that. So I think that's important to keep in mind. I think that's what will probably hold him back for ever being like a 10 or a 9. However, he does have the utility, right? I don't remember what his buff is called, where he can start parrying non-contact attacks. He also gets a tremendous amount of buffs right away, so any meta that's requiring that sort of thing, he does have the resistances, and then he has an absolute crap ton of damage that can be accessed without playing overly complicated, without playing overly tricky, and doing all of the intercepts. I'm actually going to be live stream testing the day this video goes live. I will be live stream testing my own. As I just talked about how I'm not doing a ton of 6-star rank ups these days with my Catalyst. I took him up with a 4/5 gem from the Saga. I immediately ascended him. I like him that much. And I think even if we never move him to an 8 or a 9, he's a perfect example of a champion who, if you've got them as a 7-star, put on that stat focus, or if you're not playing at like Celestial level or something like that, you can probably pull off tremendous results with a champion that's attacking like him. The downside is he has almost no defensive value. And champions like that, I think, is just competing in a very tough spot in regard to those like 5 or 6 places, maybe in your deck, right? Like our Sunspot's taking up one, something like that, where they're just purely there for offensive value. And you're competing with Sunspot, Juggernaut, and maybe CGR, that you've got to be at that level. I don't think he is, but I do think you could have tremendous results with him. Like I said, if you're emphasizing him or really showcasing him or those sorts of things, get him down well. Beta Ray builds like his own kind of mystery, and it's very different than Superior Iron Man as far as we're starting off with the 7, because I think we're going to see videos. I think Bitter Steel is going to produce some. I think he already has actually done one. It's just not full Battlegrounds, that are going to make him look like a 10. I talked about this at length in the general tier list. My concerns with Bill are twofold. As far as like the most meta defenders are often seen with their either resistance, their immunity to shock. And if you're in there as an attacker and you can't take any of the biggest, baddest meta defenders, that's a problem. That's a problem when we're evaluating them just for Battlegrounds. Remember, my general tier list, we evaluate this differently. The other issue is, and we talked about this in the general tier list, is I don't think Bill has a bad flow. I want to make that very clear. I think he's phenomenally well designed. I think there is a skill ask. I think that skill ask may produce some tremendous results in Battlegrounds, but it might start to produce also sources of frustration depending on the AI and if it's interacting with you well, if you're able to manipulate it and then take advantage of it well enough. Or also could just take enough time. Like we've all been there where we want the AI to throw a special and it just won't. And that's fair. That's just how the AI works. There's issues with the AI, but that, in my opinion, that's not one of them, because we're all facing it. And I could see all of those things hurting Ray, or Beta Ray Bill. So as a result, we're not starting him up with an 8, but I want to be clear. I very much do think Beta Ray Bill could be an 8. And if your deck, if you use him really well, if you have him very highly ranked, and you accentuate him with your deck and those sorts of things, I think he, for you, could probably even be a 9. But as far as like how we're rating him right now, 7, with the ability to definitely move up to an 8, easily see that, possibly a 9. All right, let's go and quickly look at the super premium tier attackers. In this tier of attackers, you can see like often it's going to be more of a meta that's bringing them up, or you just really want to use them. Spidey Supreme's one, it's like, if you have one ranked highly enough, if he was a 7-star, he probably ends up actually going up because he's powerful enough in enough situations, scenarios, and troublesome or meta defenders, so he could go up. And Wiccan is a great example, right? In one of these most previous metas, he was always in my deck as like one of my last case hopes for taking Serpent. So all of the champions, again, they can fulfill a role. The one we're going to talk about today, it's a new champion, Deathless Vision. I live tested him on stream and actually came away kind of liking him. I don't think he's one of the best champions. You can see we have him as a 6. I'm not telling you I think he's great or phenomenal, dominant, rank him all the way up. But if you like him, or let's say you don't have many robots, or let's say you don't have many passive heal block champions, or there's a meta that's requiring a variety of immunities, I think he's your guy. He's actually pretty good. I think a lot of people who like Viv Vision, one, will get better results with Viv Vision. She's very much intended for Battlegrounds, and if you're able to utilize her playstyle well, then you're probably going to pull off great results with her. But if you're comfortable with her, you might be really comfortable with that Deathless Vision, and if you need those other things, he might be great for you. There's a champion called Mr. Sinister that I know a lot of us face, and sometimes if you don't have a robot, you've got serious problems. So I think he is a really nice replacement. He's an option for that. I could see metas accentuating him. And let's just say you like Battlegrounds, but you don't love Battlegrounds. You don't want all your rank ups to be based purely on Battlegrounds. And you like Deathless Vision because you enjoy questing with him. You enjoy doing war with him. I think you can rank him up and you can have a pretty good time with him in Battlegrounds, depending on the level you're looking to play at. All right, let's go ahead and move on to defenders. For today's video, for this month's video, we're going to actually look at all defenders together. The first one we've got is Enchantress. I'll update her color. It's the wrong color. That's fine. I'm already finding her to be a pretty unique defender in the game. And I don't just mean from the ability standpoint. I mean from the standpoint of, I originally kind of likened her. My hopes for her was it should be similar to Kindred, where she's like a puzzle. And really anyone could take her. But if you start to misplay it, could get really dangerous. I think some of the things that are a little bit different with her is I think there's just RNG built into her kit, meaning like which spells are going to come up. Not all of them have the same threat level. I think that's just really important to keep in mind. Not all of her spells have the same threat level. So every time they come up, you're not certain how threatening they're going to be, right? Also, the day this goes live, I will be live streaming, just kind of like learning to fight her. I've got an idea. I've been able to solo the side quest boss and things like that, but the nodes on her are almost not there at all. So I think that's important to keep in mind. We're going to start figuring it out. We'll figure this out together and have a good time with it. She can be beaten. You obviously want champions to have debilitate. The thing I'm finding right now, though, is because of her green spell, and I don't remember what it's called, having a miss counter is really helpful. One of my favorite counters for her so far has actually been Quicksilver. I also think she might be kind of here, I think, or maybe not necessarily the intention, but an outcome of it. An outcome of it might be maybe champions like Luke Cage, who's good anyway, trust me on this one, might have an extra place to shine. Maybe it's like, yeah, you could bring Silk, but it could all go really sideways against Enchantress. So maybe a champion who's 5 to 10 seconds slower, but has a little bit more utility, might behoove you over the course of a long play session or a long season to bring them, because you're going to start more and more putting the odds in your favor as opposed to taking your chance in the dice roll against Enchantress. Silk can do it, but it also might not, depending on what spell she rolls. She's complex, she's complicated, she's Kindred-esque, but unless I've forgotten everything about Kindred, there's no RNG involved. And I think that's why you're seeing a variety of responses to Enchantress. You're seeing videos of her being absolutely nuked, while also a variety of the community is very frustrated by her. And I think that's one, due to her being new. Two, she is incredibly, incredibly powerful as a defender. And three, part of that power is actually RNG. And there are some role-playing game asks that a lot of us don't have in our decks. An example is I actually took my OG Spider-Man to rank 2. I don't know if he's going to make my deck, but he's a phenomenal counter to her because of his debilitate, which you also want to bring when you fight her. Let's move on to Man-Thing. Being available as a 7-star now. I think we are going to see 7-star rank 3s as in Battlegrounds if you're looking to play in Mysterium and Celestial. I just believe, I think even probably Quantum. And then far on down, depending on what level you're seeing, you're probably going to see 7-star rank 2s and so on. One of the things that makes him so tough, right, is his, he reduces or completely nullifies, I think, the damage of a crit, if I remember correctly. That's a big deal, and that is definitely going to go against champions like Silk. I still think Silk's phenomenal. I'm not advising you to take her out of your deck or ask for rank down tickets, but I do think this is evolving. I'm very curious to see how in 2 to 3 months, how this is all shifted, because I think Enchantress and Man-Thing alone, or together, I apologize, might be enough to start making people consider bringing in champions like Overseer as a dual threat and as an attacker. I'm not necessarily predicting that for certain right now, but it's something I'm going to keep my eye on and definitely try to wonder or think about how much are metas emphasizing this versus how much are actual defender choices. If you go backlog far enough, remember, we were doing tier lists before Battlegrounds even officially came into the live game when it was in beta and things like that. Mystics were the dominant defenders. Man-Thing was definitely one of them. Mystic Dispersion was playing a big role. And the Overseer was someone that I enjoyed. I often had him in there because he could handle them so well. Well, the meta has continued to move on due to the actual nodes, but then also the new powerful defenders have come out. And then also the incredibly powerful attackers that Science has had since that time. But as those defenders start to come back in, and if we add another one like Enchantress that might be asking for something that not necessarily the Overseer can do, but she's mitigating the potential nukeness of those other Science champions that have come out in that meantime, it might shift the meta quite a bit. This is the sort of thing that Kabam keeps doing, keeps us on our toes, and we need to focus if we want to be competitive and have a good time in Battlegrounds. I actually do really like that from that framing. The next champion we'll talk about, and I do believe it is the last champion for today, is actually the Leader. The Leader is a champion that I am going to continue to be very unsure where to rate. This is where we had him when he came in. I do think there is a defensive threat there, but what we're also seeing is there is an offensive use too. If there's healing reversal to be done, or if there's power reversal to be done, there might not be anyone better. Well, at least in the Science class, America Chop is still the best at the power reversal. people are pulling that 7-star, as they're taking him to rank 3, as everyone's seeing, this is actually a very well-made champion who has some potent abilities that are actually very, very relevant in the bigger scheme of things, as far as like the big meta of the game. I want to keep an eye on this. I'm intentionally calling it out because this is another situation where I think over the next 2 to 4 months, you may see the leader get promoted as far as a higher score, and you also may see the leader move to an attacker or a dual threat. I don't want to move him now because this is where he started off, and I'm not sure where he's going to end up. So moving him to an attacker or a dual threat now felt a bit silly. We've given him a 7. We feel good about that score for his overall general value. And then as time goes on, and we really learn what his role is going to be in Battlegrounds, we'll adjust the placement should it be required. That's it. Those are the new champions. We always keep an eye on the meta, how it's shifting, do our best to balance what we're experiencing as far as the decks versus how much of that is due to just the specific meta that there were for the last 2 node sets of a season and that sort of thing. Always love absolutely doing this. Like I said, I base my rank ups for this when I'm looking to do a Battlegrounds rank up, full Illuminati. As usual, let me know what we think we got right. Let me know what we think we got wrong. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.